Hi, it's Brad from Headbangers. Today we've got Lindsay from the Heavy Metal Journal. We talk about how a channel formed. She's also got a big pa passion, which we get to dissect as well, and how she intertwines it into her metal passions too. We talk about the first album we ever bought, and we also talk about embarrassing first gig that we went to. It's a really great episode, so hope you enjoy it. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to support us. We're also on Patreon if you want to head over to there. And also run media, everything this Headbangers podcast for Twitter, which is Headbangers Pod 1. So yeah, without further ado, let's begin. Headbangers. Welcome back to the Headbangers podcast. We host Nathan and Brad. Here to Lindsay from the Heavy Metal Journal. How are you doing today?
Hi. Hello. I'm good. How are you?
Doing well, pal. Doing well. So let's start with like a little icebreaker on the show. What's your funniest gig story? So when you go back all the gigs you've been to, like what sticks out to you the most?
Oh, wow. Oh, God. I've been to a lot of gigs, but I think the thing that stood out the most was when Benji from Skindred ran away with my glasses.
That's such a Benji thing to happen as well.
Yeah, I know, right? And I'm like, they're not exactly the most extravagant glasses in the world. Why are you running away with them? So this was back in 2007-ish, I want to say. And it was when Skindred were supporting Rob Zombie in Glasgow, in Scotland.
Oh.
And me and an ex of mine at the time went outside, and he was having a cigarette, and we turned around and there's Benji just hanging out with a bunch of fans and stuff after the show, as you do, kind of thing, before Rob Zombie comes on. So we go over and we get like the pictures and the autograph and things like that. And I actually wear glasses. I don't have them on today because there's like glare and I won't be able to see. Can't see anyway. And he's like, "Oh, can I have your glasses? I want a shot." And I was like, "Sure." And he put them on and then promptly walked down the street away from me with them. And I was just like, "Hang on a minute, I need them to live. Can you please come back?" Had to chase him down the street to get my glasses back. So yeah, that's kind of like a standout moment for me. I think I was only about 22 at the time or something, 21 roughly. So I was just like, I don't know what's happening. What's the etiquette here?
Did he just like forget that he was having them on or something and just walked off?
No,
Or
no,
did he
he
just do it
knew.
do it as a joke?
Yeah, he knew. He knew exactly what he was doing because he was giggling like an idiot the whole time because he knew I was chasing him.
He seems like such a like down to earth kind of guy, just like a dude, you know what I mean? Like because you get
Yeah.
sort of rock stars. I guess in even in his position, they sort of like think that they're better than, or you get that kind of vibe for them. But you just don't get that with Benji. He's just like such a dude.
Yeah, totally. I mean, he was probably one of the most friendly guys that I've met, like in the metal world kind of thing. He was really cool.
Oh yeah,
It's good
definitely.
to hear.
What I want to ask you as well, what made you want to start your YouTube channel?
Oh wow, it's something that I've kind of toyed with for a number of years now. And it was mainly just going to be like a history-based thing at the time. This was like many, many years ago because I live in Scotland and it's a pretty historical place. And the place that I live in particular is very scenic and there's a lot of history to it and stuff. But then I was like, can I maybe shoehorn metal into that somehow? Because metal is like a huge passion of mine too. And I was like, there's quite a lot of history-based tracks in metal. So I started researching it and I knew there was a lot of music in metal that was based on history and mythology and stuff like that, but I
Mhm.
didn't really know exactly how much until I started looking into it. And my list just kept growing and growing and growing. And I was like, wow, I have like a lot of source material here that I can use. So I was like, right, I'm going to run with this. It'll be an experiment. I'll see what happens. And I just set it up and here we are.
It's interesting you should say that. Interesting you should say that. Actually, one of my questions because I wanted to ask about the parallel between history and metal and to combine two of your interests because when you're not a person about metal, you're also a person about like these historical that you've gone to. So these are my two favorite passions thrown together.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it was just like a random thought one day, because I've been toying with the idea for a while, and it was actually Sabaton's album from last year, that was in my top 40 list that kind of triggered the idea for me because I was like, right, Sabaton do all these tracks about war, like the different wars and things like that, and then I was like, Iron Maiden do different tracks about that too, and then I started looking at the mythology stuff like that. And I was like, I'm really into a Scottish band at the moment called Hand of Cailleach. And their very first album is about like Scottish myths and legends. And I think Hell Ripper's second album's based on that too. So these are all passions of mine, and they have been since I was a kid. So I was just kind of like, right, this is a thing, and I'm just going to delve into it and see what happens.
Awesome stuff. Yeah. When was like the first time that you probably got interested in history then? Like what came first? What came first, history or the metal?
It was history, but only just. I think it was like a difference of a year, maybe. So I live in a town in Scotland that's the ancient capital of Scotland. And I remember when I was in primary school, we had to do like a personal project. And I remember everybody was choosing things like their favorite animal or, their favorite hobby or something like that. And me being me, I was like, I'm going to make things difficult. I'm going to do the history of my town, not realizing just, I was only like 8 years old at the time. I was like, not knowing how vast that was actually going to be. And I remember starting to read up about it with my mum when we had dial-up internet. I'm showing my age now. And I just got hooked. I got absolutely hooked on it. And I've got books upon books upon books. It's quite an obsession. It's definitely up there with the metal.
Oh yeah, I've always loved history. Like someone at my work said that if I knew as much about IT as I did about just random shit, like, well, I'll just say, oh yeah, back then they did this, and like
Yeah.
he went, you'd be fucking lethal. You'd be managing this place.
Oh yeah, definitely, absolutely. I mean, I know for a fact that I would be like an incredibly successful person if I applied that kind of effort into like work or everyday life as I do into metal and history and stuff. But yeah, I totally relate to that.
Yeah, because I think I was talking to one of the apprentices we were talking about something, and he was talking about like Vikings. And I was like, oh, like one of the most fucked up things they did. I was telling him about like blood eagling.
Yeah, the blood eagle, yeah.
And he was there like
man.
he was looking horrified. I was there like, and someone at work just went, if you knew like so much, if you knew like the same amount of shit, you'd be great. Like, but I was just talking to him about blood eagles. I'm like, this is more interesting, if I'm honest. Like, it's just way
That's
more
fair.
interesting.
It is way more interesting. I often find that I find things very interesting that I'm not meant to be doing. Like in my everyday life, history and metal's not my thing. I do other things and stuff. But yeah, I often find that the things that you're not meant to be doing are a lot more interesting.
Oh,
Yeah, I think it's like the pressure of it as well. Like, sometimes if you do something for a career, it kind of takes away the interest slightly. But then if you've got passion besides that's like I mean, it's the breakaway from what you do in daily life. So I guess that can come into play sometimes too.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Oh yeah. Is there any sort of part of history that you always fixate on more?
I'm really into I'm going to use the term Viking history. It's not really Viking history. It's kind of like Norse, because the Vikings weren't just like one set of people. They were like various across time and things like that. But for some reason, I've always zoned into Tudor history, like the War of the Roses and Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn and all that kind of stuff. And it's not just like the royal aspect. It's just kind of like the everyday life aspect and things like that. So I think that's what I've got most books on, actually.
Yeah, it was like a big thing the learning in school. I remember like that was an enjoyable thing. And then you got into like Nazi Germany, which is also interesting. And then you went through like medicine through time thing in my school for like three years. And not even funny. It's kind of interesting, but there's so many more interesting parts of history I'd rather do than this. And I always got like really fuming when I did that for like 3 years. I'm like, come on now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know what the curriculum is for you guys down there, but when I was in high school, I think I studied Nazi Germany for about 5 years.
Really?
Yeah, my school just did not want to deviate from that at all. I mean, I think there was like a slight deviation where we were talking about the history of cars and vehicles and stuff. And maybe Germany before it became Germany, but apart from that, it was pretty much the Nazis. And as much as I find it interesting, I got sick of it.
It's almost a bit worrying how that was the only thing that they did. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
The Nazis again. Woo.
Yeah, it's like today it's more Nazis.
Yeah.
But no, like my history class, I can't speak for Brad, but mine was just always chock full of like especially in high school. It was either we learnt about the Prohibition in America, World War II, and I think all the different sort of historical periods that we learnt about was just like an excuse for our history teacher to watch a film he'd been really wanting to watch.
Probably, yeah.
Because at every single lesson he'd be like, here's a film. It's like we're gonna spend an hour. No, we'd spend 2 lessons watching the film. And I was there like, I feel
That's a
like
good
I'm
lesson to
learning
be
No,
honest.
I just thought I feel like I'm learning anything here. So
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching Saving Private Ryan an awful lot in history class, but because the class was only like an hour long, it was the same like 45 minutes of that movie time and time and time again. And it wasn't until I'd left high school that I actually watched the whole movie.
Did it ruin it for you?
Yeah,
Skip that
totally.
45 minutes.
Yeah, totally. I was like, I know what happens here. Just skip ahead.
I have that with in BV. They would make us watch Bend It Like Beckham all the time.
All
But
right.
only the same bit. So like I know the entire like first 45 minutes of Bend It Like Beckham like the back of my hand at this point. Can't tell you how the fucking movie ends. I was like, I'm not gonna I didn't go back and watch it. I was there like I watched it like 9 times in like a row. I think I've had
Yeah.
enough of that film. But yeah, I've
I'm
got the
sure it's
same
a
thing.
form of torture. It's like conditioning or something. I don't know. There's like nefarious means behind that or something. I don't know.
In my school, so we had like French class, and the only DVD that they had was Mr. Bean's Holiday. So
Nice.
we got to watch the full thing, but that's the only thing that we'd watch a single time. So I could probably race the entire film, for better or
Wow.
worse. But,
Mr. Bean. I mean, there's worse movies out there.
To be fair, I watched it recently. There was a lot of jokes I just didn't get as a kid that I was pissing myself at.
Oh yeah, I get that a lot too now, actually. You see, I've got kids myself, and you see when I'm watching like certain Disney movies now, I'm like, hang on a minute. It's like I understand.
Especially like the old ones.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I understand this now.
Absolutely. So obviously with your channel, like I feel like you've gained a lot of good traction so fast as well. Like, how do you feel about that? Does that feel like good? Does it feel like more pressure to put more? Or how does that, what are you thinking about that?
It's weird. It's really weird because I'm just like it was like this when I started Metal Twitter as well, but I'm just like a wee lass from a wee village in Scotland, nondescript. Why are people watching my stuff? I'm doing it as a hobby for like myself kind of thing. But the fact that people are showing interest in it, I appreciate it and I absolutely love it and thank you so much. But at the same time, I'm like, why? this is so alien.
I think it's because like a nice niche because obviously in history is something that I imagine a lot of us are interested in, but not many people thought about combining the two. So I think that original concept is doing you favors. But I think it's a really cool thing to do. As a lot of people do a lot of this kind of concepts. So I like it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of YouTube channels and a lot of like podcasts and things like that. And I wanted to find something that would keep my interest going because I get distracted very, very easily, very easily. So I wanted to try and find something that would have a lot of interest for me as well, in order for me to keep the motivation to keep going. And this is what I found. I absolutely love researching stuff. Like I've learned so much from just studying the songs from the 1914 album that I've been working on. And it's made me want to read more into it and stuff as well after my videos. So it's pretty cool.
Do you feel like you've learned a lot about like 1914 or like when you search an album that you had no idea before because you spent that time, just putting the effort in like reading the album and stuff like that?
Yeah, I've learned an awful lot. I really have. The First World War was always kind of like a blank spot for me in terms of knowledge and stuff because whenever anybody thinks of Germany, they automatically go to the Second World War and the Nazis and Hitler and things like that. So I kind of had a rough idea of what happened to spark the First World War and the main players in that kind of situation and stuff like that. But when I did the very first track, which was based on Principe, the guy that actually shot Franz Ferdinand and sparked the First World War in the first place, I had no idea who this guy was. I knew who Franz Ferdinand was, but I had no idea who the teenager was who started the First World War. I didn't even know that it was a teenager that started it. So reading that totally opened my eyes. And it's kind of like a domino effect, because when you read about one thing, it takes you on to the next thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing. And I ended up in this rabbit hole at like 3 a.m. and I was like, I need to sleep. I'm up in like 3 hours.
And that was the case.
Yeah,
World War
definitely.
One. World War One is like has so much shit that because it's never covered like at all.
Yeah.
Like really, like everyone's like, oh, World War Two, and I think that's because it's like the most recent one. But World War One was equally the most brutal,
Yeah.
in my opinion, and also like probably like the most kind of unneeded when you actually look into why it was started. It's like because the entire thing were this guy got shot, and then everyone's like they're an ally and they're an ally, and if we don't get involved, then they'll ask us, and it was just like a constant. No one needed to actually be a part of it when you actually look at it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of the paperwork and a lot of the sources that I've read into it, a lot of them say it should have just been kind of like an Eastern European war or like a Central European war. There was no need for anybody else outside that area to kind of like get involved. But when you've got the various treaties and things like that, where one and the empires and things like that, when one nation goes into war because of the empire, the rest automatically have to follow suit and stuff like that. It was a mess. It was an absolute mess. But you're absolutely right. I think it was the most brutal. I mean, it was called the Great War for a reason, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it has been really fascinating reading into it.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's like like obviously Tolkien served in World War One.
Yeah.
He wrote there's bits in like Lord of the Rings that's just based off the shit he saw, like the bit where they see the floating faces. It's from people like whenever trenches.
I had no idea about that. I know about that until the film.
Yeah, it was horrific. Like but like that's probably just the shit. We're like, I reckon I could write this in the book. So like half the shit he probably went, yeah, that's too brutal. So like it was just horrific.
Yeah, it was absolutely horrific. And they all vowed, never to let this kind of happen again. And, that's when the Treaty of Versailles came into play and things like that towards the end, and which reduced Germany to, a tiny, like a very weak nation. But then obviously years down the line, not very long down the line, that had a knock-on effect that sparked World War II, and it happened again anyway.
Yeah. Cycle repeats.
Yeah, exactly.
So, talked about your interest in history, metal. What sparked your interest in this? And then you write for This Day in Metal. Like how did that come out? And has journalism also been a thing that's always interested you?
No, journalism has not been a thing that really interested me before. I kind of stumbled into that by accident. So, it's a bit of a sob story, really. But long story short, I set up a Twitter account when I was in a very bad relationship, as a kind of like an escape, just kind of like a distraction. And then I relied on it heavily when that relationship ended, also again as a distraction. And to be honest with you, I just started spraffing nonsense about what I was listening to on Twitter. I had no intentions of anybody listening to me. It was just kind of like an outlet for me. I was like, right, I can listen to all this metal again when I wasn't really able to before, discover new things and just talk about it online. And I slowly started gaining a following because of it. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'll just run with this. And that's when This Day in Metal approached me. They started following me. I think I was at like 500 followers at this point. And they were like, oh, hey, do you fancy doing this video for us? I'm going to say don't look at it. It's still on the This Day in Metal YouTube channel. And so that's going to make people flock to it. But hey, views, that's fine. It's cringe. It's so bad. It's so bad. And the one that follows that is terrible as well. But I had the script to read out. And it was basically various different things that happened on that particular day throughout the years in metal. Like this album was released, this person was born, these guys broke up and all that nonsense. And then Marv, the guy that runs it, who I credit everything for, he was like, do you do album reviews? And I almost turned him down. I almost said no. Because I was like, I can't do that. I've never written about stuff like this before. No way. But then I was like, no, do you know what? I'm going to give this a shot. And I did. And then he's like, here, do this one and do this one and do this one. And it just kind of went from there, really.
I just
And
find
here
those
I am.
stories the most interesting there. Like, just how nothingness, like something just spawns. Like even like sometimes in the darkest times, like, something good one that'll spawn something else. Like, see to this day in metal, and then now you're doing your own channel. Do you think it's all like a domino effect in that respect too?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I wouldn't be doing my YouTube channel if it wasn't for the Stain Metal. I wouldn't have met the people online that I have if it wasn't for the Stain Metal. The Stain Metal has opened up a world of opportunities for me. I've managed to speak to some of my biggest idols in the metal world and stuff. I've met some really cool people. I've had some really cool experiences, and it's given me the confidence and the motivation to do this YouTube channel. So yeah, definitely, it's definitely been a domino effect.
Oh yeah, and I massively relate to like it starting from something bad, because like I think the only reason why this podcast exists is because when I went through a really shit breakup, Brad took me under his wing a little bit more, and like we spent more time together, and then we were like, oh, I were the only one that wanted to do the podcast.
All
So
right.
that's yeah. If I honestly think
The only reference here.
yeah, the only reason,
I'm kidding.
the only reason. No, but I honestly think if if I hadn't had gone through that breakup and I was maybe still with that person, I don't think I'd be doing this.
Yeah, same. Yeah,
I honestly
absolutely.
think like she would have either been like, no, you can't do that, and being like, oh
Yeah,
yeah, I agree,
yeah,
and not
100%.
doing it.
Yeah, totally with you on that. I mean, if you'd asked me a year and a half ago, can you picture yourself speaking to Dino Cazares and having him like follow you on Instagram and stuff like that? I'd be like, no. What are you talking about? Fear Factory have been like one of my favorite bands for the last 20 years, more, maybe a little bit more than that. So if you told me that like a year and a half ago, I'd be like, you're off your head. Absolutely not. What are you talking about? Um, but like you say, good things are born from bad things that happen. And I'm very thankful for where I am.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. I think it's always good to like, when in the future happens, like you never really know where it's gonna go. Like
Yeah.
remember when me and Nathan first started the podcast, we were like, we're never gonna speak to like these people, and even DMing them, and then, year down the line, we just send a random email out and then they say, oh fuck it on. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's just anything can happen, which is exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I send emails to like PR companies or musicians or labels or something saying, hey, can you add me onto your promo list? I do this. Or hey, do you fancy an interview? Blah, blah, blah. Whenever they reply and say, yeah, absolutely, I'm like, how did that happen?
it didn't
Absolutely.
it because we had it like this year where I had like a sort of like shit moment was when we were doing press for like Damnation.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm not because I told I told my mum I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing press for this festival, and she was like, oh, is that for the podcast? I was like, yeah. She went, so you're actually gonna be like going there and actually
A surprise
interviewing
to us as
people
well.
in
Oh, it was very
person?
last minute.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I
Literally a
was
week before.
yeah, literally a week. I had to sort out coach travel and like the
Wow.
hotel and all that
Which
within
you did
like a
an
couple of
incredibly
days.
bad job of, by the way.
Yeah, no, I got to no. If I did better than you, because if anything, yous were late. I was there 2 hours early in Manchester.
But that's Megabus' fault, not mine.
I had a really great morning. I got breakfast, complained about it the entire day, and like it was I was more organized than you in that situation. I was like,
I'm not
right,
getting
got
involved
this
in
in
this
the
domestic.
No, but yeah, like my mum didn't realize how it sort of grown. She just thought I
Yeah.
was just sat in my room, just chatting shit to random people all the time.
Yeah.
And then she was like, "Oh, you're actually doing this." It's like, yeah. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, fucking hell, like,
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same for me as well. I'll be like I'll say to my mom, I'm like, oh, I'm going to be interviewing this person here and blah blah blah, and she's like, okay, anyway.
What was like the biggest imposter moment for you? Like, when you interviewed someone and you're like, oh shit, getting pretty nervous for this now. Or do
Oh
you not
God.
get the nerves beforehand? I don't know.
So I get the nerves all the time. I battle with imposter syndrome all the time. But I think there's three moments that stand out for me. One is the very first interview I ever did with the Stain Metal with Dino Cazares. I'd never interviewed anyone before, let alone my idol. So when that was handed to me, I was like, okay, I actually took 2 straight shots of Jack Daniels before I went on camera with him, just to try and calm the nerves, and then had another 2 afterwards. But so that was like a major imposter syndrome moment. When I spoke to Peter Tagerton of Hypocrisy, that was a pretty big moment. Like right before he came on screen, I was like, I can't do this. What am I doing? I can't do this. And then the last time was quite recently, actually. It was Rhys Fulber. When I spoke to Rhys Fulber. He's a chatty guy. I think the interview, which is on the This Day Metal YouTube channel, is about 48 minutes long or something like that. But the actual raw footage that I have is almost 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, when that guy gets comfy with you, he likes to chat.
I think that's always good though. Like, I think the worst thing is if someone doesn't speak that much or they're a bit more shy, like obviously it puts more pressure to you speak to you as well. But I imagine like speaking to the first interviewee, like that's quite big.
Yeah,
I'm not surprised it felt that much pressure.
Yeah, it was absolutely terrifying. But it's funny when you mention like, people that don't really speak to you when you're doing these interviews and things like that. That has happened a couple of times. I'm not including any bands where there's like a language barrier, where English is like their second language, because that's something totally different. That's something totally different. I'm not going to name the band, but there was one band that I interviewed and I literally got yes, no answers. And I think the interview was maybe about 5-6 minutes long. And I can normally improvise, because I can chat for Scotland, once I get going, I don't shut up. I'm sorry.
We like that. Sorry.
Yeah, it's like I'll just spraff. I'll just keep going. But I couldn't work with this at all, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I really don't know what I'm going to do. So, yeah, it's really awkward when that happens because it kind of sheds you in a bad light, right?
Yeah.
It makes you look really incompetent, which isn't the case.
Yeah, like it leaves a really weird energy in the interview.
Mm.
But I always try push through it. Because Brad's not detest. What is it? We'll back this up. That I could probably talk to a brick wall for like 2 hours if I wanted to.
Yeah.
But it's sometimes I'm there like, give me something just to
if Nathan hits the wall, I'm like, we're fucking doomed now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's if I ever look at Brad and I'm like,
don't look at me, man.
And I'm like, I don't know what the fuck to say. Brad's like, hey, you're the fucking one. You're the one that's best at talking. Go, just go.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at least you guys have got each other to bounce off. When you're on your own, you're just like, anyway, moving swiftly on to nothing. But yeah, that first time I spoke to Dino, that was a real nerve-wracking experience for sure. And I'm going to be honest with you, the interview is awful. It really is awful. The second time I spoke to someone was way better. I had way more experience. I'd learned how to edit things and stuff like that. So it's like chalk and cheese. It's actually ridiculous. But yeah, that was a definite chuck me in at the deep end and see what happens kind of moment.
Yeah. No,
I think
absolutely.
the most nervous I got for an interview was probably Sean from Ingested.
Oh, wow, it was like our first big one, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, no, I was 5 out, so I had work like, I think I finished work like 20 minutes or half an hour before the interview started.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to get a taxi, but there was traffic.
Right.
So I ran in and I had like 2 minutes to spare before I powered on the laptop, joined the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like out of breath from fucking sprinting from like halfway down the street. And then like, so I'm like heavy breathing. Brad's there like, oh, he's in. Do you want me to let him out? Yeah. And then I had to just like quickly just take a breath. And the entire time I was just shitting my pants. I was there like, I'm terrified.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I first spoke to Dino, it was bonfire night. And in the village that I live, they light a massive bonfire, which is like right at the end of my garden.
That's
so as soon as he came on camera, my living room that I'm sitting in right now just went orange. And there was this massive fire out my window, and then the fireworks started going off.
Must have been so confused. Like, what the fuck's going on over there?
He really was. And I had to say to him, because I could hear it, and I was like, I don't know if the camera is going to pick this up or not. And I had some terrible kit at this point. I had like a laptop that was falling apart, a really old webcam, everything was stacked up on books and everything. And I was just like, this is a nightmare. And I had to say to him, I was like, if you can hear anything, I don't live in a war zone. It's bonfire night. And he's like, what's bonfire night? And I was like, right, well, it's a good thing I'm into history.
Oh,
I had to
yeah, it must
explain
have
what
been
the
more
whole thing
confused.
was.
I love the whole like book setup though with the camera and all that because it reminds me of bearing in mind telling one about this channel, but I used to have like a game when I was like 15. So I used to do let's plays, but I didn't really know what a
that's
game
so
capture was
awful.
back then.
That's so
So I just
funny.
used to put a camera in front of the TV and I just used to chat so much shit. Like I kind of miss that confidence I had when I do not care what I'm saying. I'll just like, and I
Yeah.
sometimes watch it back. The sad thing is I can't actually delete the channel because I can't access the channel anymore.
Oh
For some
no.
reason. I've forgotten the password, and I don't know what email I used. But so yeah, I'm sort of immortalized on YouTube forever.
No, the best one you had was when you reviewed that fucking airsoft gun in the dark, and like you can't
Yeah, I
see
couldn't
anything.
see anything. It was
He's
on
like
the
he's
bed
there
for
like
most
so
of
as
it.
you can see here it is. It's there like oh it looks a fucking amazing, Brad. It's just pitch black. And it's like oh yeah, it's pretty loud when you shoot it, and like I remember when we watched it when we got like when everyone met up at yours. And we just binge watched Brad's old YouTube videos, and like I've never laughed so fucking hard in my entire life.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that
That's
was super.
amazing.
So speaking of more successful YouTube channels, where do you want to take your channel like from now to like a year's time? Like what kind of projects do you want to work on? It's a fresh year, like you want to see in the channel going forward.
I'm open to anything. Like I'm not I mean my main content is going to be the history mythology based stuff, but I'm not going to just pigeonhole it to that either because I think I can get quite despite the fact that the history's different, it can get a bit quite, repetitive and it's like all right, it's another history video, it's another history video. So I do the New Metal Monday as
Yeah.
well, where I talk about my new favorite releases of the week and stuff. And to be honest with you, I'm kind of using that as a bookmark to keep my mind fresh when it comes to doing the album of the year list again. So I can look back and be like, oh yeah, instead of just writing it down and then losing a bit of paper like I so often do. But I'm also I'm going to be doing gig vlogs as well. I've got one that I need to sit and edit, and I'm going to be filming another one next week because I'm going to go and see Catatonia next week.
Oh, so am I.
So yeah,
All
well
right.
excited about that. But I put up a post on my Twitter page today because I'm going to do a reaction video to hot takes in metal. So I put up like a little link where you can put your hot takes in anonymously. So I don't know who they are. I don't know who's written them or anything like that. I've got about 30 sitting in my inbox at the moment. I didn't realize that there was going to be that many, and I can see my phone flashing up with more now.
I was actually gonna post that, but for some reason, like the link wasn't opening for me. My work was terrible, but I did a really good hot take to put on there. It's
Oh,
a
well,
shame
just
that I can't.
message it to me anyway, and I'll keep your
Yeah, I'll
secret.
message
It's
it
fine.
to you.
Yeah, I'll keep your secret. Well, I'll tell the secret, but I'll keep your identity, so don't worry about it. A couple of people have done that, and I'm like, I know who you are now. Nah. But I'm going to be doing stuff like that. And I was actually bouncing a couple of ideas off a friend of mine today. So I like to drink whiskey. And I know a lot of bands release, so I know a lot of bands release like their own bourbon, a lot, their own whiskey, their own rum and things like that. So I'm going to do little reviews on that. Same with coffee. Fit for an Autopsy have got their own coffee, Motorhead have got their own coffee, Zach Wild and things like that. So I'm going to be doing reviews on that. I have a couple of metal like monthly subscription boxes and stuff that I'm going to look into to see if I can do like little unboxings and things like that. Vinyl shopping, bits and pieces here and there. I'm going to make anything metal related. It's the short answer to that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like that.
Reactions are a really good way of like sort of growing as well. Like we did one for Sort to Avail's Bratfa, and like that still gets views now.
Yeah,
Like
that's
it's
nice.
at like 10K views or something. And
Nice.
like every month we'll be like, oh, let's take a look at the
Why are
statistics.
people
It's
still
like,
watching this?
how the fuck is how are people? It's been 2 years. Like,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
amazing. Well, I just do you know something? I didn't even plan this. The idea just popped into my head this morning at like 7 a.m. and I was like, "Hey, that's a good idea." And then I just put it out there before I forgot. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. But I wasn't expecting as many responses as I did, so that's going to be interesting. I haven't read any of
Excited
them.
to see it.
Yeah, I haven't read any of them. I'm hoping to get it out maybe over the weekend, early next week. Um, I haven't read any of them, so it's going to be genuine reactions. So that's going to be interesting.
Can we have an exclusive heavy metal journal hot take of your own, or is that something that you're saving for the video?
Oh, I was going to do my own for the video, but I'll give you one. Not the
Okay.
biggest one, but I'll give you one. I it's not really a secret because I've spoken about this on Twitter before. I hate Dave Mustaine's vocals.
Oh, that's not a hot take. I fucking despise it.
I used to hate Megadeth and I would not give them the time of day because Dave put me off. I've seen Megadeth live twice at the Download Festival and Sonosphere Festival. And each time I absolutely hated them, like could not stand them. But I gave them a shot recently after they released their latest album. And musically, I like it now. Vocally, however, no.
Have to be decided. Yeah, yeah.
I just can't do it.
I'd say that's a fair hot take, to be fair. I know that a lot of people are not too big on his vocals. It's like sort of like there's a bit of a divide there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do like Megadeth, but yeah, I can completely admit he's leaves a bit to be desired in the vocal area.
Yeah, I mean, I get the guy had like throat cancer and stuff, and I'm not, dissing him for that, obviously. But I've just
They weren't
never,
great before that.
yeah, exactly. I've just never been a fan of his vocals at all. And when I saw him live, that kind of cemented it for me because he was even worse as well. So I was just like, no, I can't do it.
Yeah, honestly, the Megadeth's always been my least favorite out of the big four.
Yeah.
Like, I said to Brad, like, anyone that's like, yeah, they're my number one out of the big four, I'm like, red flag. Straight up, it's just red flag. I'm not gonna get on with this person because, like, this is gonna be hot. I think for the most part, they are the most boring out of all the big four.
Okay.
Like, Anthrax, sick. Slayer, sick. Metallica, sick. And it's kind of just like you listen to a Megadeth song, it's all right. That's the problem I have with it. It's just like it doesn't have like the same sort of energy. So
Yeah.
I feel like it just doesn't kick the same way for me.
Yeah, I mean, there's a
That's
few
fair.
people in my life that are close to me that are huge on Megadeth. So it's I'm laughing because I can actually picture their reaction to being called a red flag. That's hilarious.
No, it's
It
a red
wasn't
flag.
me.
Megadeth fans take it personally.
It's a
I
red
know.
flag for me because normally, in my experience, I've never really had a great conversation about music with them because
Yeah.
like I'll like completely polar opposite shit to what they like. So I'm there like, yeah, cool. No, I've not listened to that band. Have you listened? No, you haven't listened. Okay, and then it's just like the conversation goes exactly like that the entire way through.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, a couple of people that I know that really like Megadeth listen to a lot of the extreme stuff as well. So that's fine. But I think it's just people that are stands for Megadeth. I'm just like, no, I can't do it. No.
Yeah.
Same with Guns N' Roses, actually, for me.
Oh,
There's
I hate
another
Guns N'
one.
Roses.
There's another one.
I don't use that word. Don't use that word often, but I don't like. I just hate the music. I just don't get. I just can't get it.
No, I just can't. I kind of have like PTSD related Guns N' Roses nonsense. A far gone ex of mine from my teenage years played them to absolute death to the point where I got sick of it, and I get twitchy now just listening to it. So
I can't imagine that because I mean I get sick of hearing it when Paradise City, Welcome to the Jungle, it's just plastered everywhere. So like if someone down and make me listen to that as well, I'll be like, oh.
Yeah. I mean, I like You Could Be Mine from like Terminator 2. Terminator 2 is like my favorite movie, one of my favorite movies of all time. So that song I like. But that's probably it. Yeah.
Yeah, I respect that. If you could speak to any musician, dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh wow. Okay. There's a couple. Lemmy.
Oh
Speak to
yeah,
Lemmy. I would speak to Dimebag. Who else would I speak to? Peter from Typo Negative.
that'd be good.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. Um, yeah, those three, definitely.
Yeah, choices.
Lemmy's
Thanks.
definitely the top for me. I
Yeah.
just feel like I'd have a really fun conversation with him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he was like a
Interesting
really
guy.
cool guy. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd just be like a very it'd probably be the most informal. It's just like really it just I reckon it'd just be really nice.
Yeah, yeah, he's the kind of I think he's the kind of guy that you can just sit at the bar with in a pub, have a couple of drinks and just shoot the shit and just talk about absolute nonsense.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree.
definitely. He's all every single like clip of him I've ever seen. He's always struck me as that sort of guy.
Yeah, definitely. Just really down to earth. Yeah.
Definitely.
What about you
Besides
guys?
the history. Oh, okay. Oh,
It's your turn to get grumpy.
alive. Alive, probably like I don't know. One of my favorite bands has been tribute like 15, and they're still
Mhm.
one of my favorites now. And I've always wanted to speak to Matt Heafy, and that's been like my number one goal to get on the podcast. Him or Michael out from Path.
Mhm.
That's another big one. So
That'd
yeah,
be
I'll probably
cool.
say them two. If I could pick Dead, probably like Chuck Schuldiner. That can be fun. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
A nice guy from what I've heard.
Yeah. I'd probably it'd be Lemmy or Dimebag.
Mhm.
Dimebag, I'd just ask him, like, you know those dive bombs you were doing? What the fuck were you doing?
I know, right?
Like, just be like, what were you doing? Right? Can you show me? Just so I can just show like any friend that asks, like, because the world needs more dive bombs.
Oh yeah,
Um,
100%.
yeah, I'll be like, what were you doing? Just show me it. I want to know. That'll
Secret
be my
formula.
probably the only conversation I've had. It's like, right, the dive bombs.
Explain it. Go.
So we
What would you
talked
say
about the
was?
history. Oop.
Oh, we jumped in at the same time there, bro. What would you say was like probably like the first album you ever bought?
The first metal album that I ever bought with my own money was Metallica's Ride the Lightning, and it had already been out for about 20 years by that point.
Mine's
Do you remember like
really
happening,
embarrassing.
like going and getting it for the first time?
Yeah, so I used to work a little part-time job when I was 15 as a waitress, just like a little Saturday job. And I saved the money from that for ages. And I went out to, I think it was HMV in Edinburgh. And I just knew that I had to get this album because I'd fallen in love with the tracks from this album from like a young age. So I went and I got the last copy that the HMV had, and I was like, it must be fate or some shit, I don't know. But I bought it, and it's upstairs in my house, and I treasure it.
Can never get rid of it now.
No, definitely not. No, that's going with me to my grave. So
My first one is very embarrassing. I feel like I might not be allowed to say it on the podcast for just being shamed.
I bet I can
But
beat it with my very first concert I went to, but go for it.
well, mine was I was only a kid, so no one judged me. And I didn't even know who the fuck these people were, but I just saw the advert on TV and I was there like, yep, I want that. It was Scooter. First
There's
album I bought.
worse.
Yeah, but well,
That's a great
it
album. You
was
shouldn't be ashamed of that.
no, it's the one that has like that jumping all over the world song. I
Yeah,
just heard
yeah.
that
Yeah.
in an advert, and
And what?
I think I was like 8. It's like, my mum, here's some pocket money. And I like fucking ran to HMV. I'm like, I'm getting this. And my mum like, you
Yeah.
don't even know what Scooter is. Never listened to it either. She never even pops it into a fucking CD player. I just bought it out of impulse. Like
Yeah.
I was just there, like little kid, being like, saw it on TV. It looks sick. Uh, and like the first actual album I ever got was a present for my mum, and it was a busted album. And it was the one. It was the one that had all the Thunderbirds theme tune music on it.
All right.
Yeah, and I was very young. I was very very young at the
You're
time. But
showing your
yeah,
metal credentials here.
yeah. I don't
Every,
honestly.
everyone knows now.
That came in very late in my life. So like, I
Mhm.
got into like metal and stuff at like 16.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it came very late in life. Before then, I didn't really even pay attention to
Yeah.
it. And then one mate went, "Here's a Slipknot song, listen to it," and I was like, "Yeah, there we go." But yeah, before then, didn't even know it existed. Just
Yeah.
would see the album cover and go, "That looks cool," but never really look into it.
See, mine's more embarrassing than that. Mine was, you know, that song "Riding Dirty" by Chamillionaire.
Uh-huh.
I, I, that was like my first CD. I was like 10, and it was just like 4 remixes of the same song. I just used to put that on repeat. So yeah, it took me a while to branch into a better music taste, I suppose. But you know, still not a bad song. It's the album anymore
He
for
still spins it every
obvious
now and
reasons.
again.
Yeah. So for the win nights.
Brilliant. That's amazing.
What's this gig then? The Morrison gig than
Oh, you remembered
Nathan's
that, did
album.
you? Right, okay. So I'm gonna get roasted alive for this. Right, so I think I was about 14 at the time. And bear in mind, I was already into metal at this point, which is just making this whole thing even more shameful. Anyway, and a friend of mine who was not into metal was like, "Oh, this girl band is coming to our town. They're playing like this club, blah blah blah. I want to get tickets. Will you come with me?" And I really didn't want to go, but because I was such a people pleaser at a young age, I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll go with you because you're my friend and I will do this for you." And this girl band were literally on stage for about 15 minutes and then left. It was like the worst 20 quid I've ever spent in my entire life.
Wow.
And that was Atomic Kitten.
Wow. Why did this leave after 15 minutes?
I
So
don't
weird.
know. Well, from what I remember, they were late. I remember that there was like this weird circus trapeze kind of act on the stage first, which absolutely boggles my mind because the stage was tiny. So how nobody left with any like without a broken neck or something completely escapes me. But I think they were running late, so they only had enough time to like be on stage for 15 minutes, and then they had to leave because they were going down south for their next show or something. And it was awful. I mean, I expected it to be awful anyway, but like logistically, it was just terrible. It's just so bad. So yeah, Atomic Kitten. There you go.
Understandable.
Don't judge me. I never paid for the ticket.
I'm not judging. I'm not judging. To be fair, I never went to a live show before getting into metal. And my first one, I've spoke about it loads, and Brad will probably bollock me after for bringing it up again.
Yeah,
But it was
many
Suffocation.
times.
It was Suffocation was my first one.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that was an interesting one. It was just like out of the blue. My mate went, "Do you want to go?" I was there like, "Yeah, I've not listened to him," and I was there like, "Ha!" And that's what got me into death metal.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was an interesting first show. What about you, Brad? What was yours?
Mine was a dubstep art called Nero. Was my first gig.
Nero. I
Yeah,
listened to
because
Nero
like
all the time when I was a kid.
yeah, well, when I was like 16, like that was the thing that everybody was listening to, and I was like, oh, to get into metal at that point, but I like kind of heavier sounding music, and I guess like dubstep was like a natural way
Yeah.
from pop into something a bit heavier. And then obviously the Corn and Skrill came out, and I was like, listen, well, but yeah, so someone was like, oh, do you want to go to Nero? No, I still admit it was a very good show. I don't listen to much dubstep anymore because I don't think anybody does. It does. Yeah, it was a good time, I suppose.
Fair. Fair enough.
What's like the number one like non-metal artist you'd like to see live?
Oh, probably I've seen The Prodigy. They were cool.
Oh, they were great.
I'd like to see Pendulum. And I'd actually quite like to go and see Lindsay Sterling. You know, the violinist that does like all the dubstep kind of drum and bass stuff while she's playing the violin. I'd quite like to go and see her. I think she would put on a really cool show. So yeah, either her or Pendulum.
Pendulum would be a good shout. They were actually one of the first artists I got into as well, but I never really got a chance to see them. They always had like weird tour patterns, or like they kind of disappeared for ages, and by the time they come back again, because they did Party for ages, and then they did Pendulum again. But I just
Yeah.
like, never got around to it. But I think one of these days I would like to go see them because I still like them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when they did that song with In Flames, Self versus
Yeah,
Self, that's how I discovered them. And then I kind of just like worked my way back. And then I discovered, I think they did the cover of Prodigy's Voodoo People. Was it Voodoo People?
Yeah, I think
Possibly? Yeah.
yeah, it was Voodoo
Yeah,
People.
it was. So yeah, kind of work backwards from there. But yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing them. I think that would be a really high energy kind of show.
I'd kill
Absolutely.
to see Cult of Wall. That's my number one.
Oh
He's a
yeah, okay.
country artist. Um, he's like younger than me. Sounds like Johnny Cash. Must smoke like 40 cigarettes a day. Like to have that voice.
Start
But
pack.
yeah, like yeah, since he was probably a baby, it's like yeah, get him on early. He's gonna be a country singer. But every single like bit of music he does is like one of his albums in particular is like really atmospheric,
Mhm.
really nice, and it's just a really chill vibe. And Brad once took the piss out of me saying, "I can imagine you in front of a porch in Tennessee, like just smoking a cig whilst or like on a rocking chair whilst this is playing." But no,
You'd love that though. Let's be
I fuck it. I
honest. You
would.
would love
I would. I'd love to be out in the wilderness in like the middle of fucking nowhere where no one can like bother me or anything like that, and just
Yeah,
listen to music
totally.
yeah, out somewhere nice and warm as well.
Yeah, that's the
Um,
dream. Absolutely.
but yeah, I'd go see Wall because
That'd be cool.
he's one of the best country artists I've listened to.
That'd be awesome. What about you?
Oh,
You're not
oh,
getting away
tough
with
one.
this.
I'd love to see Kendrick Lamar, to be honest. Like I'm a big fan of rap,
That's a
and
good
Yeah.
shout.
there's a lot of like rap artists that I haven't really got to see. I don't know, they're always like really expensive, and by the time they come around, like I love them over Suicide Boys and everything like that. And yeah, 60, 70 quid. And obviously there's that I'm used to going to like 15 quid, which is more economical, I suppose, for the moment. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'd love to see something like that, especially because his live performances are so, like visual. And I'm
Mhm.
a big sucker for on stage performance like that.
Awesome. That's cool.
Yeah, that's a good
So we
shout.
talked about your history, we talked about your metal interests. What do you like to do outside of all that? What are your hobbies and
I like being outdoors a lot. I like going on hikes and things like that, exploring the countryside and like I'm surrounded by old churches and abbeys and castles and things like that. I live in the central belt of Scotland, so I'm like right bang in the middle, so I can get to most places within a couple of hours, unless I want to go really north, and in which case that's like 4 or 5 hour drive, if not more. Um, but I like going outside a lot, hiking and things like that. I read into a lot of psychology as well. That's another passion of mine, that I'm hoping to start studying in October this year. Um, and reading, I live quite a quiet life. I'm at home the vast majority of the time, and I just like my own space. I have my select people in my life that I like being around, but other than that, I like my own space, just quiet and boring. That's the way I like it.
I think that's a good
Sorry.
picture, to be honest. You've got your inside activities and you like to go out, so I'd say that's enough. And keeping your circle small is always good as well.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. I mean, I have a really bad habit of like starting a hobby and then giving up after a couple of weeks and then starting something new. But history, metal, hiking, being outside, and things like that, reading psychology has always been a constant. Um, but yeah, other than that, I kind of just, I've got 2 kids. I'm running around after them all the time. So yeah, I just live a nice quiet life with my Mel.
Yeah,
It's all
I
good.
respect that. And to be
Yeah.
fair, if I had like Scottish scenery around me, I'm sure I'd be taking hikes as well. But for me, I've just got Leeds City Centre out and they're outside, which I need to walk around, and it's loud and busy and annoying. Has its moments there.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd love to live in a much more remote area of Scotland, but that's not feasible at the moment. But maybe later on in life. But like I said, I'm quite central, so I'm quite close by to a lot of places. Like the nearest city to me, well, technically speaking, my hometown's just been made a city, but the closest big city to me is maybe about 45 minutes away in the car. Um, so yeah, I'm in a quiet area, but central enough so I'm not completely isolated. So it's the best of both worlds.
I am. To be fair, I envy that because me and Brad live quite close to city. I hate it. I'd love nothing more than to just be surrounded by like nothing but trees and grass and everything like that. I don't really. I just find I feel better when I'm around that sort of stuff.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah,
Same here.
tranquil.
I mean, in the village that I live in, I've been here for about a year and a half now, just under that. And I discovered just the other day that there's a llama farm just outside.
Oh, wow.
just outside my village. And I don't know how I didn't realize it, because I pass it every day. And I was just driving past one day and I was like, that's a llama. What's going on here?
I discovered there's a Shetland pony farm near me.
That's
it's
amazing.
in like this area called Skulls.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like walking around there, and I walked past, and like I had to do a double take. I was like, wait
Yeah.
a minute, that's a fucking Shetland pony. And then
Yeah.
like I noticed like, oh, there's loads of them. I looked like like a happy kid. I was there
Yeah.
like I was there like, I need to run home. I'm gonna get some carrots. I'm gonna feed these fucking ponies.
Totally.
So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I was there like,
Totally.
Sounds like good
honestly,
evening.
yeah, no, I was very shocked by it. I've never seen anything like it. In my area is like really rough, so I'm there like, what the fuck's this doing in here?
It's completely out of the
Like,
blue.
yeah, I was there like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a very nice experience, if I'm honest. I was like, oh, this is cute.
If you ever get the chance, and this is going to make me sound completely mental, right? I am, but this will make me sound completely mental. If you ever walk past like a field full of cows, stop and start mooing at them. It's the most therapeutic thing in the world when they start coming towards you and mooing back at you, and you're having like a nice little cow conversation with them. It's amazing. You should try it.
I will absolutely try that next time I'm in a field of cows.
Yeah, definitely. It's amazing. I love it.
I'm
I'm
opposed to
it.
I'll
That
go
could be
with
the
you,
takeaway podcast episode.
Totally. Come moo with cows with me.
No, it's
Yeah, thank you
I've
so
always,
much
I've
for
always
coming on,
preferred that.
by the way.
That's okay. Thanks for having me on. It's appreciated.
Nice, it's been an absolute pleasure. Yeah, go check out the Heavy Metal Journal. And yeah, we'll definitely have to get you on again sometime. We've got some fun segments when we do like 21 questions. So it'd be fun to get you on, and so we pick like two. If you've got another person that you think knows you the best, to do that too.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Count me in. I'm absolutely up for that.
Yeah, it's a very fun segment. We did it with Bangers and Mosh, and like that
Yeah, that was
episode
hilarious.
We
learned a lot of stuff. We learned a lot of stuff.
So hard.
Definitely. No, just give me a shout and I'm more than up for that. Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Anything you want to lastly plug about your channel?
Yeah, just thank you so much to everyone that has subscribed and supported me on this mad endeavor that I'm on. I really do appreciate it, because like it's just a little hobby for me. So the fact that people are finding interest in it and are supporting it is absolutely amazing. If you would like to subscribe, feel free to do so. But I've got a lot of, please, thank you, please. But I've got a lot of really cool stuff coming. So yeah, stay tuned.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much again. And
thank you for having me. Cheers.
Catch you on the flip side. Take care.